Hey everyone, welcome to episode 42 of the Jet Life Uncovered podcast, where I am going to go into some detail with you of what it's like to upgrade to captain at a major airline. First, to start off with, it's been months since I have recorded an episode. There's been a lot of major life-changing events between Jess and I. We both got married. She got a first officer position at a Part 135. Of course, my captain upgrade, and just a lot more things that have been going on that I have taken some time away from podcasting. So I don't even know. Is this recording? Are we doing this correctly? We are? Okay. So right after the intro, I'll go into what the table of contents is going to be like for this episode. And we're going to go over all the things you might want to consider when you're going to upgrade to captain. You are now listening to the Jet Life Uncovered, an insightful podcast that explores the minds of those who have conquered to live a meaningful life in the air and on the ground. Whether you're a pilot, frequent flyer, or celebrity, we uncover the deep truths of what it's like to live life in and out of the jet. I'm your host, Fernando Contreras, airline pilot, personal trainer, and intervention coach. You're about to take off into a conversation with individuals in which we get to know their intersection between living a purposeful life and reaching peak performance. The Jet Life Uncovered podcast starts now. All right, so I'll make this quick and easy for the first portion of this episode, which we're going to talk about a couple of the life-changing events, and then we're going to get to the main topic of talking about becoming captain at a major U.S. airline. So Jess and I got married in September. Then we had a small wedding in California, and we had a little hiking trip after that. As soon as we came back home, we were here for about 12 hours, and she got a call from a Part 135 airline to say, hey, you got the job. So you're going to start in about 2 weeks. You'll get your reference materials, everything in 1 week. So we were like, oh my God, we had this honeymoon kind of almost sort of planned, and we do non-rev traveling. Obviously, if you're in the airline, you know what that means. If you're not in the airline, it's basically when you travel standby. So everything that we leave, booking hotel, cars, whatever, tours, whatever we're going to do, it's all very last minute. So we kind of had an idea of what we wanted to do. But we just didn't execute on it. She got the call, and then we were like, pressure's on. We want to go somewhere real quick before we both go into training, because my captain training was at the same time that her training was going to be at. So we decided to go to Morocco. Less than 12 hours later, just being at home, we were on the plane to go from Fort Lauderdale to JFK, and then JFK over to Casablanca. So we had a fantastic mini quick getaway honeymoon. Morocco's beautiful. We did Marrakesh. We did Fez, we did Tanger, a couple other ones that I can't pronounce the names, but it was absolutely stunning. I really loved Morocco. Also, my niece was born during our training, so that was a huge life-changing event. We're both on call now, so we're kind of now playing the whole lifestyle of both of us being on reserve. And it was a really interesting experience of her being in training and me being in training as well. Jess made a really great YouTube. Her YouTube channel is Jet Set with Jess. She has been making really great videos on, shifting from the lifestyle of being a flight attendant to a pilot to getting hired at this 135, and just explaining her journey and how things were. So it's really great. Go check it out. I'll leave the link in the description. But it was very interesting. We're going to create a separate episode where it's just Jess and I talking about that moment in time where she was in training and I was in training, and what our lifestyles were like then. Then after we both finished training, we actually did another trip. We went to Dominica, which is an amazing island. It's actually the nature island of the Caribbean, which is really, really great if you have not been there. First of all, the approach into that airport is gnarly. I mean, you're in this valley coming in and you're just like dodging trees and stuff. And it's really, really cool. Shout out to the pilots at Envoy who are qualified to go into this airport. Really great. Also, the Silver airline pilots and the other Inter-Caribbean, all those things. That is an awesome approach. So that was pretty cool. I wish I could have done it while ahead of my time at Envoy years ago, but that route started after I left. But anyways, let's get into what captain training for a major airline is and what kind of experience do you need to become a captain, or basically, where would you feel comfortable also being a captain? Different airplanes obviously required like different kinds of where you feel comfortable, right? Some people feel comfortable at 500, some people feel comfortable at 1,000, and anywhere in between. For me, by the time I upgraded, I was at 1,300 hours in the right seat of a 737. And I had really great mentors. I had really great positive experiences. Of course, there were some bad ones here and there from different captains, but that's something that, that's our line of work. That's where we're surrounded by so many different personalities. But at the end of the day, it's how you feel comfortable in order to make the seat change. So 1,300 hours, I thought that was good. I hadn't experienced a lot of like abnormalities and things like that have happened with the aircraft, but I have experienced a lot of things that, so the 737 is not an easy plane to fly. And sometimes that thing has a mind of its own. The great part about being a good pilot on the 737 is that you recognize what it's doing and you know how to fix it, right? You're staying ahead of the airplane when it's not doing what you want it to do. So, for example, my sim partner had 8 years on the right seat of a 737. He upgraded at that time based on, his quality of life and his particularly phase of life too, in which he's in, that he decided to take the upgrade. Some people take it as soon as it's available. Some people like to do it a couple of months or a couple of years into it, just depending on the quality of life that you want to have. So that leads us into what is the right timing for you if you did want to consider upgrading. What are some pros and cons? And, the pros being that once you're a captain, that is a feeling like no other. I mean, the leadership position comes with really great responsibility in a really great role. My first trip after OE, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm a captain for a major airline and I am going to go fly to DCA. Luckily, it was a good weather day. But what I'm trying to get by this is that you sit in that left seat and you feel already that like, wow, I'm in a good leadership role here. Like I control the pace of how this flight is going to go. I'm ensuring the safety of everyone in this flight. And if you like that kind of responsibility, this is it for you. That's that feeling that nothing else can give it to you. At least in aviation, but it's such a good leadership and mentoring role that you have, not only for your first officer, but for your whole entire crew, even gate agents and even passengers. You are the ultimate person in that seat for safety and experience of what everyone's going to have on that flight. I personally love that. I live for that kind of stuff. So it was very natural for me to feel that. Even if it wasn't very natural for me to feel it, it comes with experience because obviously I was a captain already before at a regional airline, and this is where I gained that kind of experience. Dating back to when I was first captain in the regional airline, yeah, of course, there are times where I was like, okay, how am I going to handle this? How am I going to do this? And obviously that experience makes me feel more comfortable now as a captain for a U.S. major airline. But for example, my sim partner, he had never been a captain. He came from the Air Force flying some badass planes. He flew the F-16, which is my favorite fighter jet ever. And but he sat right seat for 8 years on the 7-3. And I learned so much from him. And he learned so much from me because we were bouncing things off based on my previous experience. And, it's time. Time will do it. As long as you're safe, as long as you know your procedures, as long as you're going with the standards, you're going to be good. That's one of the pros of that. The other pro is a pay raise. I mean, obviously you know what the pay tables are at major US airlines, even at low cost carriers, everyone's almost around the same. That pay increase is pretty nice. So that also opens up different ways on how you're going to invest your money because yeah, you have a little bit excess money that you're going to come in now. And it's all about how you really spend it. It's not just about like, oh, I'm making extra money, so let me go blow it somewhere. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You got to enjoy your money the way you want to enjoy. But if you're more into like I want to invest my money so it can go longer in different options. Yeah, you got some pretty good options now, which is really, really nice to have. So those are different ways. One of the ways that a lot of people like to do is they like to max out their 401k. That depends on the different contracts between the different airlines and what they have. But it's a really great thing to do, especially if you max it out in your first month, the first few months, right? Because that interest is going to just compound for the rest of the year and so forth and so forth. So the earlier you can get that money into a 401k, it's even better. But again, everyone's in different situations in their lives where they can put or not put in that kind of money. So there's also different advantages to being in the left seat depending on the contract of your airline. And for example, like seat locks and things like that, or the movement between seniority up and down. So if being on the left seat and making that kind of money and then having that, even though you're going to be junior, if that's my situation, you weigh all that out. And if that fits with, for example, something like what happened during COVID, right? There was that halted everything with hiring. Right now, with the whole issue with Boeing and Airbus, that halted a lot of things with hiring. If something were to halt again, where do you want to be stuck at? And are you okay with what you're making on the right seat? Are you okay with the scheduling that you're getting on the right seat? Is that all going to be good if you get stuck for some reason there? That's something just to consider. There's no right or wrong on that. For me, in my life and not in my life phase and situation, I'd rather sacrifice a little bit of my quality of life of being a junior captain than a senior FO for either financial reasons and also for planning for future wise. So I do keep in mind that this comes with a 2-year seat lock. A seat lock, for everyone who's not in aviation, just means that I cannot move from this position until 2 years are up. So I'm stuck being a captain on the 737 for 2 years, and I absolutely love it. Let's talk a little bit about the cons. So I kind of mentioned a little bit more on the seniority and the scheduling. As a senior FO, I was bidding about 20%, which that is unbelievably fast for being in the major airline for 2.5 years. That is just something that I am beyond. We are beyond lucky. And I'm very grateful for all that. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be able to upgrade so quickly. That's just the timing thing of the airlines, though. I would be extremely content too if the movement wasn't as fast. The fact that I'm able to fly an airplane and do that for a living is the main thing that drives me. Everything else comes as an additive. The financial stuff, the quality of life stuff, that I understand that as you get in different phases of life, you have a family, marriage, and things like that. Your scheduling does highly affect your life outside of work. But you chose this profession knowing that. You chose to be a pilot knowing that you're going to be away from home. You chose to be a pilot knowing that you're going to fly airplanes, whether you get paid a ton of money or not. Would you rather be sitting doing something else that you may not possibly like? I mean, it just comes down to that. That's why I'm so grateful for the opportunities that we have right now. But I am also very content just at the fact that I get to fly airplanes. I mean, 5 a.m. departure out of somewhere, you see the sunrise. Yeah. It's nobody really likes such an early wake up van time. But damn, you're like very grateful to God or whatever higher power you believe in. And you're like, damn, this is so awesome to be doing this. 5 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, seeing the sunrise. So those are the things that the way how I look at my profession and in my situation with being in the left seat. The scheduling was nice. I was able to hold nice 2-day trips, nice 3-day trips where I didn't have to fly a lot of flights in a day. That's obviously not the case now with being on reserve. Reserve, I'm short call. So meaning they call me and I got to make it to the airport within a reasonable time. And it's whatever trip is there, right? Depending on the airline that you're in, there's different configurations and there's different ways on how to avoid flying. There's different ways on how to bid for certain reserve days where you'll get used less, different reserve times in which you will be able to do once you're on short call reserve. In our airline, the long call reserves get used first. That means they have 12 or more hours to be able to know what they're going to do the next day or whatever trip they get. So they get to bid for that. But these long call reserves, it works really nice for them because they probably have to commute in. So they're able to bid for something that's commutable maybe, or just certain things so that they can try to double up and maximize their time while they're in base try to get as many days worked. And then when they go back, they don't have to worry about that so much. Different reserve rules work different based on bucket systems or seniority systems. Every airline is a little different. I honestly haven't asked what my friends at United or Delta or Spirit or JetBlue, how their reserve system works. But all in all, it's all very similar in a couple differences. So with that, I would also make sure if you're going to change your quality of life and you're going to go into reserve, make sure you know what the reserves look like. Because, for example, I was reserved 2.5 years ago. Our contract changed. I'm really trying to figure out how reserve works again. So maybe that's something that wouldn't have held me back from bidding for the captain upgrade. But it's something that if you were to consider of lifestyle change, that's something you should look at, because you'll kind of know how it's going to affect you based on your seniority. So that's really important to understand too. Normally, typically the captain trainee. So I got it awarded sometime in June, I believe. Then the training date was somewhere between October, November, December. I chose to start in October. That's just what we wanted to do. I basically waited until then to start my captain training. Normally, you're paired up with the initial hire or a first officer that's starting at the airline for the first time in that specific airline. And normally, your flows, your setting up procedures, your call outs, your everything goes how it would on a regular line. However, because of the slowdown, our particular airline hasn't not been hiring, and a lot of airlines have not been hiring, that the captains are getting actually paired with another captain upgrade. So it's 2 captains going into the training. And so what that happens, there's a lot of repetition, right? There's a lot of, okay, I sit on the left seat, I do my stuff. Now the other person goes, they sit in the left seat, they do their stuff. And you as a first, especially if you've already been on the seat that you're upgrading on, it's easier, right? There were a lot of captain upgrades that were coming from the Airbus to the 737. And that was a little bit more challenging because they have not sat right seat. They don't know what the procedures of the FO is for that specific airplane. And it just makes it that they have to learn almost 2 roles at the same time. You just don't learn your captain stuff because you want to watch what the first officer is going to be doing. So that kind of creates a little bit of, it's a legal thing to do. It's in our contract. And I got lucky because my partner was already 8 years on that seat. And I learned a ton from him, right? Based on experiences. He learned actually a couple of things from me as well, just things that I have seen that he hasn't, or I saw it more recently and it's been a long time since he saw it. So it was really great to bounce off, ideas and standard operating procedures with him, and we checked things together, and it was just awesome. His attitude was really, really great, which in a sim partner, that's like the biggest thing. Proficiency, obviously, but more important than that is your attitude towards things. Like, I think that is the winning thing that anybody, actually instructors, and that your partner would hope that you have. It's just a great attitude. If you mess up, if you're not getting something and you have the right attitude to learn, not only are you going to get it and become proficient at it, but everyone is going to have so much of a better time. There's going to be better environment in there than if you just have a bad attitude going towards something. So those are just kind of some of the things, and based on some of the experiences that I have heard from other friends in different airlines, and even just even going through flight school, everybody knows that having a good attitude towards it is really, really important. The only bad thing I would say about this captain pairing is that we just have to do everything twice, and we alternate it per day. So for example, if my sim partner did the flows of captain one day, I would do the box work, so the CDU, the FMS, and I would do all that day too. Then we would swap the next day. So I didn't get to do my flows on that day, right? Because if not, the session will be really long. So what does that mean? That means, yeah, you got to put in that extra work, that extra time, in which, when you're already on that seat, it takes a little bit of that extra work just to get your flows down. One of the hardest things for me was actually, instead of going like this with my left, is to do things with my right. I keep messing up the barrows and the mins, for the altimeter and for the minimum setting, because I'm different hand now. So, I mean, that kind of threw me off for the first couple of sim sessions, but I mean, that's it. You just don't get to practice your thing every single day. So the way that the training is we have a really great training facility at the airline that I work. I mean, this thing is state of the art, not only in the staying that we have, so the lodging, the facilities of the simulators, the facilities of the classrooms, not to mention the gym facility, which is my favorite. The facilities where you're just in this campus where the whole entire airline is based, right? It's really cool because you come across different departments, and it's nice. You get to meet people from different places where you get to know a little bit about their lifestyle. There's a restaurant in there where everyone kind of comes and hangs out at certain times of the week, and you gotta just get to socialize with them. And I think that's pretty important in a corporation or in an airline that you fly with. Just getting to know different people. It's massive. You're not going to get to know everyone, but you get to know one or two people from a different department. It's kind of cool. So we had 9 days of the procedures training and the VFD. I think the VFD is like visual flight device, something like that. It's pretty much touchscreen stuff. The actual let's see, the MCP was actual touch button. Those had it. The CDU was actual touch button. And the throttle quadrant was actual. Some of them had actual throttle quadrant where you can move. Some were just like virtual, where you just press the screen. Everything else was pretty much touch screen. You touch, the packs, you touch the electrical stuff, and it's just touchscreen, which is a little different because the 7.3 has a spring-loaded system on some of them, and it has, so just getting the feel for that was just a little bit different when you actually get into the sim session. It's not a big deal, but I think it's a really great way to transition from getting to know your procedures on a paper flight deck than actually going on how the flight deck is placed, right? If your paper procedures are flat, you're never looking at your overhead panel up top like this, or you're never looking at your center pedestal or your center stuff down here. You're looking at it just straight in the wall. So really, when you're doing the flows, you actually start like from somewhere up here, or you do something here. It's really interesting on how your mind just kind of gets used to seeing it flat. And then when you actually see it in 3D, it's like, whoa, all right, yeah, this is a little bit different. VPTs, or the PTs and the VFDs, last 2 hours. And it's a normal flight where they throw possibly some sort of abnormal in there. You got to go through the QRH. How are we going to do it? What are the procedures of handling this? What are the procedures of handling a route change? What are the procedures of doing holds, intercepting bearings, and all these different little things that are not so much heavily on the abnormals. They're just more on the day-to-day changes that you may have to your routing, to your altitude. Are you using the functions of VNAV correctly? Are you using the functions? What VNAV functions are you using and why? So it's really great. And then the second 2 hours is ground school. You pretty much go over the systems in which you're going to have one tiny little malfunction in. So electrical system was one of the days. You get a drive light comes on, and you go through the procedure on how to do that. Then you have 2 hours on electrical system ground school and whatever other systems you're going to learn that day. We actually had 2-day, 48-hour breaks about every 4 or 5 days, which is nice. Some people can get to go home if they wanted to. You can stay there too if you want. Either way, it's a nice way to have your break, catch up on your studying, and then go right back at it. So after those 9 sessions, you do what we have is like a written exam, and also a little mini like procedures validation to see if you're good to move on to the next thing, which is your simulator. Your simulator, you have 10 simulator sessions where here it gets a little bit more intense with the abnormalities, how you handle it. different kinds of things, doing a category 3 approach, learning how to use the HUD that we have, all these different procedures, all these different techniques and things like that come into play in these 10 simulator sessions. The last 3 are actually your maneuvers validation, where you get tested on the V1 cuts, the all that stuff that's just abnormal. Then another one is like a loft, where you do it's just like a regular line flight, but they speed things up and they put a little bit of pressure on you where they throw an abnormality. And it's great because it really prepares you for the actual check ride. And in the actual check ride, you're like, oh wow, things aren't moving as fast. Like I have a little bit more time. You don't feel as like it's so compressed. It's really, really great training. I really love the training that we have at our airline. I think all the instructors are really great, that we had. Very positive experience with all of them. And they're just really there to encourage you to learn and do things with the standards. And nobody wants to see you have a bad time. If you're having a bad time, they're there to support you, and that's the kind of training that a lot of people, really like to have. For some people, it might get boring or frustrating, but I'd rather have that than someone kicking and screaming and tell me that I'm doing something wrong. Because that kind of pressure does make me learn for sure, but over time it doesn't. So I just really think that they do a fantastic job in teaching. Then one thing that I will mention though, with different instructors, and everybody's teaching methods are the same, and I'm sure it comes over with the standard on how you should teach certain things. But I really love instructors that challenge the students based on questions to see where their knowledge is at. And by seeing where their knowledge is at, can you go deeper into that system? Can you challenge the student even more and not just leave it at the most basic part and keep moving on because we got to finish some PowerPoint slides? That I really got in my last 2 sim sessions. And those were really great. And that makes sense to have it towards the last sim sessions because you've had all this knowledge build up through your training. And yeah, towards the end where you're closer to your check ride, it's more of like, let me challenge the student and see where they're at. They may need more, and that might also prompt them on how much more in depth do they want to go through an abnormality or something like that. So I think it was really cool. I would have loved to have seen it sooner though. I think that would have been really great. Then after we finished our check ride, I had about a week off, came home. It was great. We went back. I went back for a PLM class, which is professional leadership mentoring, something like that. And I thought that class was really, really great. Becoming a captain is not just, oh, okay, I'm in the left seat now, I'm getting paid more. You're basically setting the pace for everything and finding the way to balance everyone as a crew to handle a flight safely. That's a big part of being a captain. But a big part too is also how to be a mentor, how to lead by example, how to lead when these different scenarios come up that flight training doesn't really teach you. When you have other people involved with different emotions, different reasonings, and you are the ultimate one to make a decision, how do you know you're making the right one if the standard operating procedures, if a situation goes beyond that, if a situation goes beyond like, okay, I got to make a decision based on people giving me these different, inputs, of course you're going to revert to your standard operating procedures. But if that doesn't get you the right answer, what do you do? And that's what this class really, really did a great job at teaching because they threw different scenarios in there. And I was like, damn, if I hadn't gone through this class and I actually went through that and I felt some sort of pressure, I actually wouldn't have known what to do right there and then. It would have taken me some time for sure, and I would have gotten it. But now with this class, it's like you have all these different tools available to you to make a decision even sooner and more effectively. So really great. I had an awesome time at that class. Then after that class was done, it was 3 days. I went and started my operational experience. It was great. My first trip was a 2-day trip, a Chicago layover. And then after that layover, I came back to Miami and did a Santo Domingo turn. It was awesome. And that's how I got my Latin America for our airline. And now I can go to Latin America considered countries and areas. Then after that, I had my Latin terrain, which is your qualification to fly into airports that are or special qualification airports that require a Latin terrain qualification. Most of these airports are, around mountainous terrain. It could be shorter runways, higher elevation, places like Bogota, Medellin, Quito, Guatemala, places like that. That's where you would need the special qualification for. So I got my qualifications as soon as I was in operational experience. Then I had my Fed ride from Chicago to Vegas, and that was a pretty lengthy one, but I had such a great time because the person that was doing the Fed ride was so amazing, such full of knowledge. I mean, the chick airman was too, and we were just bouncing off scenarios almost the whole flight. And I learned so much. This guy, the way he presented information, it wasn't in a way of like, hey, I know more than you. It was in such a personable and humble way that I was like, I want to know more. And that's such a great style of teaching, especially from your APD of that airline who's giving you your Fed ride. I mean, that's freaking awesome. I truly, truly loved it. So I want to talk about what my routine was with training and during training. So first, let's talk about food and what I did for meals. Every 2-day break, I went home and I actually restocked on food and brought it back. I do not have a kitchen in the training facility in the lodging in the facility where I was staying at. So what I decided to do was to prepare a lot of the things that I cannot cook in this hotel. So I try to bring all my proteins, maybe some rice and things like that, some veggies, and bring those as much as I could. It wasn't going to last me all 5 days, but at least I had a little bit more control of what I was eating during my breaks in the simulator session or during the PTs and the VFDs. And that plays a major role. And I'll tell you why, because there's nothing more important than fueling your body with the necessary macronutrients for cognitive, not only physical, cognitive functioning, for you to actually absorb a lot of the things that are being taught, perform well, not get like cloudiness, fogginess and not get tired while you're in that training. I mean, 4 hours inside a room where you're just constantly doing things over and over and over again, without a doubt, it gets tiring. But you want to have that kind of energy from food to be able to last a little bit longer than you would if you didn't eat. If you just had a protein bar, I personally couldn't do it. Some people can, but I burned way too many calories for me to just eat a protein bar and be okay for another 2 hours. It just doesn't happen. So that's why I like to bring my own meals like that. And the rest, the snacks and the other little things, I actually use Instacart to be able to order those from the grocery store, get it delivered to the lodging facility. And I have all that. So I don't have to actually pack a ton of stuff and bring like a fourth bag full of food to training. And that really helped out a lot. It really helped out me to be able to control the quality of food that I was having during training. And of course, I would go to that restaurant either outside of the training facility or in the training facility or around the complex of the whole airline, because social part of the social aspect of being there around other people and having something to eat, something to drink. It's nice. That's enjoyable too. I don't just spend my time eating in my room only or only eating my food on the breaks. Like, you have to have some sort of balance, right? So that was kind of what I did. I only took certain supplements. I did not take like my protein shakes with me. I did not take a whole bunch of things with me. The only things that I took were my vitamins, and they come. So I use Designs for Sport, the Power Pack. Okay, and these Power Pack comes with 30 packs in this thing, where it has your multivitamins with your phytonutrients. It has vitamin D3. It has 2 omega-3s, fish oil, and it has a magnesium. And it is in a pack this big. And every 2 days, I would just rip out 5 bags, put them in there. It doesn't take that much space. And that's kind of what I had for my vitamins and minerals. Really great. If you do want to get yourself some of that, you can use Fit Av or Fit Aviator 10. I don't remember the code because it's been a while, but I'll leave it on the link and I'll leave the website. You can use that. Designs for Sport is a great supplement company. They fuel D1 athletes and professional athletes as well. So that's what the kind of stuff that I like to use, putting in my body something as pure as it can. And they are NSF certified. So that means that they are Designs for Sport is NSF Sport certified, which is another company that comes and verifies the purity of everything that they're putting in their labels, so that you're getting somewhere pretty close to 100% of what they're putting. If something is not NSF verified, I may not trust it as much in terms of, am I getting the quantity or the purity that is being expressed in these labels? But anyways, let's move on. My morning routine. So my routine, early days versus later days. And early days, I mean like my training started very early in the morning. Obviously, when your very early morning starts, it is, you're going to try to get some good sleep the night prior. Good thing that leads to having good sleep is try not to exercise late at night. Try not to have drinks later at night. That obviously does not help you sleep well. And try to limit the amount of light that you're having right before you go to bed. I mean, it makes a huge, huge difference in doing those three, how much better quality of sleep you're going to get. I mean, there's so many other factors that can go against those. But if it's a night where nobody bothers you and there's nobody in the hall making noises and you sleep good, you're going to feel really refreshed the next day. You go through your training early in the morning, you come out, you have something to eat, and then I would go to do my exercise. I try to do my exercise around midday so that I can first be able to do my exercise and also not exercise so much later in the day that if I'm trying to go to sleep around 8 or 9, I'm trying not to have that later on in the day. So that's it for the morning routine. And then obviously the way I start my meals in the mornings is I combine a protein as well as with a fat. So I had boiled eggs, and I also ordered from Instacart avocados. Every morning I would have 2 boiled eggs and a full avocado. That's really great. First of all, breaking a fast, try to limit the amount of sugars that you may have or the amount of glucose or carbohydrates that you're going to have. I'm not going to get too much into detail of the reasoning why, but it has to do with insulin levels. But I'm not a professional as a registered dietitian or nutritionist, so I cannot share a lot of that scientific stuff because I'm obviously not a professional in that, but I do understand how it works. So yeah, that's what I have: protein and fats. That's how I start off my day. As I get into later on in my day, I do have some more of those glucose, and that glucose a little bit later in the day actually fuels me a little bit more up for my workout that I'm going to have midday. So if that makes any sense, you start off with something that is going to synthesize muscle and give you energy during low demands, right? You're just sitting down and training. You're not burning glucose at that time. You're burning fat. So fat, as you've heard me talk about before, is oxidative method of metabolism. That means when you have enough oxygen meeting the demand, you're using fat for fuel. That doesn't necessarily mean stored fat in all these places, because glucose is always going to be stored as extra when you don't have enough oxygen to meet the demand. And that's the source that it's going to tap to use energy. Since you're sitting around all day, the glucose never gets tapped. However, when you're going to go work out now, yeah, your body's going to start going to those untapped resources of glucose to use for energy. In my example, I am more of like, I need to replenish all the glucose that I'm losing in my workouts. So if I don't eat enough, I'm actually deteriorating my body as I keep exercising, because it has to go through once it runs out of like that fat, once it runs out of glucose, it's going to start going to protein. And if I overdo it, I am literally working against trying to maintain my muscle, and that's not good. So that's how I play around with my certain macronutrients that I eat during the day. And it worked out for me on those morning routine days. When my sim sessions were later in the day, the routine was pretty much still the same. I would still get up, have my breakfast of protein and fat, do a little bit of studying. Around noon, I will still do my workout. Now, of course, you feel a little bit different as you're going to exercise. On the days where I had earlier stuff, I felt like relief from the training that I had in the morning. when I had my sim sessions later in the day, I felt like that workout was preparing me to get into focus mode. So it was really interesting on how that worked. So with my physical fitness routine, I did a lot of the Ultimate Crew Workout Program, which is the program that I created for crew members to be able to have a balanced routine with fitness while they're away from home or when they get back to their local gym. So I was actually doing my own routine, which was really, really great. It's a 12-week program. I was there for, 6 weeks. So I did the second half of it. And the reason why I did the second half of it is because the first half is mostly to prime your body for the more intense workouts that you're going to have in the second half. Well, I had already been in my priming phase before I went to training. So I didn't need to do that again. I just went straight into the more intense stuff, which it worked out really great. But I actually reverted in some days on my active rest days. I went back to some of those earlier workouts in the program and I did them to be able to get my mobility, to be able to get my things going for a more intense workout 2 days later in the week. So it's a great program. I'll leave you the link on the description. The month of December, you can get 30% off. You just type in code FITAV30. That's FITAV30. And you get a 30% discount on the workout program. 12 weeks. I mean, that's awesome. And it has an app where you can see the videos on how to do it. You have an Excel spreadsheet on what exercise you do, how many times, how many sets, what tempo you're going to do, how much rest time should you have. It's all calculated based on adaptation. So it's really good. I put a lot of thought into it, especially for the workouts that you're going to be doing in hotel gyms. And it's fantastic. Aside from training in the gym, I also, in that facility, in the complex, there are basketball courts, volleyball courts, tennis courts. And that is something that I like to do aside from training just at the gym. It was, you're outside. It was good weather out there. You're out there playing with some of your classmates. And it's a really great time to just not only build social stuff outside of the classroom, but just to get your mind out there besides just going to the classroom, to your room, to the gym. Like you're always inside and you're just like, God, some people don't like that. To an extent, I don't like that. I mainly train inside the gym to perform good in a field or a court or something like that, or in my martial arts. Like that's what I train for. So I want to put my training to use. And it was really great because we played basketball. We did some tennis tournaments one time. I'm not really good at tennis, but I actually we started getting into pickleball, and it's actually a ton of fun. And that's the reason why, movement is so important in your life. You want to still be able to do these things, but cognitive to physical is huge. And there's a lot of studies that prove that physical to cognitive connection is really important. So, being fit during training is not as hard as people think it is. And it's actually easier when you're in the training because you're able to have a routine schedule. You're able to have, in that routine schedule that you create, it's nicer when you are the actual part in the actual creation of it, because you'll see how your own methods start to give you success or start to give you results in what you're looking for. And, to everyone that I talk to, before they go into training, they're like, have an exercise, and they exercise while they're at training. They're like, wow, it feels so good. Like I should keep doing this. That's a huge, huge thing to consider when you leave training. Remember how you felt. And also remember that when you leave training, the routine's not going to be the same. It has to be important enough for you to do it that you have to change your routine. You have to change your methods to find a way on how to do it when you're on your layovers or when you're at home. Everybody's life situation is different, and I totally understand that. But that does not mean that there isn't a way on how to stay fit. Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. If you haven't checked out the previous episode, it was with Antonina Shevchenko, a UFC fighter and also a pilot, and how she combines both lifestyles. It is such a great episode in which we filmed in one of the Muay Thai gyms here in Florida, and it was such a great episode. Listen in on that. If you get a chance, please give the episode and the whole podcast a rating. I would greatly appreciate that. It helps a ton. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.